where you're from?
Absolutely. I am the executive director in Oakland, California. So we're one of the larger housing authorities, and we're also a CLAFA member. I'm from Philadelphia, but I'm now Californian. So, and I've been here in Oakland for 22 plus years and been the executive director for, as I said, a year this coming week. So I grew up in the industry here in OHA. I've been with OHA for 22 years.
I was actually born in San Francisco, but I grew up in
Oh.
Dallas.
Oh.
But, and I grew up with the housing authority industry with NYCHA, with the New York City Housing Authority. So we did our first big project with.
Who was ED then?
I actually didn't work with the ED because
okay.
it was a full GSA solicitation. So I worked mostly with Rudy Kirkjian. He's their CIO, CTO.
Yeah.
I worked way down the chain on that one. It was an interesting.
Well, that's not hard to do at NYCHA. There's a big chain.
And I had to be very careful because Julian Castro is a very close personal friend of mine, and so I kept that at a huge distance. It had nothing to do with anything that happened, so I wanted to be very careful of anybody I was talking to in case it looked weird. My wife's also a judge, so I've learned to stay. If I know where the line is, I stay like a mile behind it. You know.
Yeah. Well, being a Philadelphian, I'm fairly familiar with at least the Manhattan properties and the ones in the Brooklyn borough. That's a whole different method of managing affordable housing.
Wow, I mean, they're a universe unto themselves.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They actually have 150 of our resident kiosks in their largest properties placed in the lobbies, and for about the last 4 years now. And we called them a few weeks, about a month and a half into COVID to see how they were doing. And they're like, they're great. And I'm like, well, how's it going with the kiosks? They're like, and they literally said, are you kidding me? If it weren't for the kiosks, we'd be dead in the water. The kiosks are a lifeline to our residents right now because of COVID. So,
wow.
Yeah, it's an interesting story.
So Michael, I will defer to you and how you'd like us to proceed today.
Well, we're not the only session with low attendance right now, so I don't know what exactly is going on, but I think we just could have the conversation of basically what we're doing to make it through. One of the things, like, I'm not trying to pick on Jill, but she's been I've gotten to talk to her quite a bit over the last few months before she took on giving her a lot of training sessions and stuff like that. So she got to put up with me for this and that and trying to get her signed up. So she was been a real trooper, but I know, when you're new to a position that it's always good to get to build your network and get your lifelines out there. And that's one of my favorite things about this session. So I was glad to see she came on that. So kind of talk about networking and how this NARO family is really so good about, if you need something, you reach out, and if they don't have the answer, they'll at least know someone who does have the answer. And so that's kind of where I would like to start off, and then we'll just go with how the conversation flows.
Well, that sounds like a great idea. And I noticed that there is another person signed on as director. I was hoping we could get a first name. Do we know who that is? Director? All right, well, we'll let the anonymous secret agent director join in, but Noel and Jill, we've already started talking a little bit. I've been executive director for a year. I was deputy ED here in Oakland, for 10 years before taking on that role. And when I say I grew up in housing authority here, I mean it. I started off as the economic development specialist responsible for getting Section 3 on the road back in the Hope 6 days when America Works was the HUD partner, and became director of the services department, then director of the property operations group, which included property management and capital improvements. And we have about 3,600 hard units. So I combined the idea of resident services with property management during that time. And then over different iterations became director of maintenance, including capital improvements, IT, human resources, and then onto the eligibility, and then onto the deputyship. And so I've kind of been one of those folks that came up the ranks, if you will, and had a really wonderful time feeling the pain of doing different roles, which I was really grateful for. And as Michael talked about, in each of those places for me, and I talked a little bit this morning about getting active in NARA at the chapter level initially, and then on to the state and regional, has been kind of a lifeline in that I've had not just executive directors, but also line staff, folks doing that. There's a couple of maintenance folk that building ground workers that are my go-to guys and gals on what the pulse is going on in the community, what's the pulse in the agency, how morale is doing. So internally, even as executive director, those wonderful folks still help me know what I can't see and touch just because of the roles that I've had as deputy and now ED. And then similarly here in the San Francisco Bay Area, there are 8 housing authorities within kind of a 30-mile radius, 40-mile radius. And we have biweekly calls. When COVID hit, we have biweekly calls where it's just the 8 of us or whoever can join, and we get on the phone. And in the earlier stages, that's when we knew, we kind of walked through who's sending who home, because we sheltered in place in California on March 16th. Who are you sending home? How are we interacting with the unions? We were very worried about folks with a little bit of leave. Where are you going to give folks sick leave so that initially they aren't going without pay? How are we communicating with the residents? How do we get our hand on PPE? It was just amazing to have this intimate small group, all of us NARO members, to be able to bounce things off with. And that has been kind of, for me, the NARO journey, is that it's this family of folk that you can have a safe conversation when you feel like I'm the only one that doesn't know what to do. And then we find out that many of us are asking different kinds of questions. So that's been my experience on the value of NARO in different positions, but definitely as the executive director, what I like to say is responsible for, responsible to, and responsible with all the employees that are part of our agency here. And I just throw it out there, we're a big agency. We actually have 374 employees, and we serve a total of 35,000 folk. So within our Section 8 public housing program, we serve roughly about 16,000 families. And then OHJs are also the project-based voucher administrator for HUD. So we serve another 45,000 families in Northern California through that administrator role. So we've got a big footprint, but I have to tell you, the way that we try to provide services and the way I try to lead is that it still feels like an intimate family on a good day, team on a day when folks aren't always happy. But I try to make sure that everyone feels like they understand their value and have a role. And that's how I try to lead. It doesn't always work out that way, but that's the attempt. So that's kind of my version, Michael, of asking that question. And thank you for starting us off. So I'd love for this to be engaging. Noel, Jill, director, Anybody want to share their experience as an executive or in whatever leadership role that you have with your housing authority?
I'm too fresh. I don't have anything to say.
What's it been like in your first 30 days? What was like the first thing that hit you?
I've made several people mad because I've decided to start, I guess, enforcing policies that might not have been enforced before.
Yep.
And so that's a big thing. And you know, I took the place of Barbara Gardner, who was here for 40 years. So everybody knew her. She knew what she was doing. It was just like, I mean, it was second nature to her. And I can't find any policies. I can't find anything because I don't know where she put them, and she had them in her head. She didn't need them. So I'm working with all that too. And it's been a struggle, but the whole community thing, like you were talking about, has helped tremendously. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, it is. May I ask how many team members are you responsible with?
4.
Four
Well,
of you?
I have 2 maintenance men, an assistant, and myself, and we have 109, I think, apartments. So
So literally you're kind of the new leader in a culture that was built by your predecessor.
yes,
Yeah.
very much so.
I have to tell you, I don't know. I think no matter what the size of the agency, and even if you're an in-house person like me, that is still probably all of our collective experience, because it is an agency does kind of take on the personality and the culture that their leader brings. So you're not alone. I'm actually having the same experiences, quite frankly.
That's good to know.
Yeah, yeah. Even big monster machines. It's amazing how folks, you get that we've always done it this way.
Yes.
Why would we change it?
Exactly.
And I've gotten if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Well, then I said, well, let's define broke, because I think your definition of mine might be different.
Might be a little different.
And so and when it's a smaller group, I would imagine that's even tougher, because they've already got their ways of working together.
They do, and you don't want to step on anybody's toes. I mean, it may be the way it works, so that's why they're doing it that way. Or if you don't voice anything, then they're sitting there like, fix it, but they don't tell you anything either. So I'm just flying by the seat of my pants, I guess.
Well, another one that I love is, well, you're the ED, don't you know? Or you should know.
Right.
There's lots of things. Yeah, and so you're not alone. And actually, if I may, and Noah, I could kind of get this from your voice that you've got sage wisdom. So you're what I like to refer to as a legacy leader. So we're hoping you kind of offered Jill and I something today, and our mysterious director, same question. But in a week, NARO is hosting a virtual session for executive directors taught by Cliff. I just blanked out on his name, Michael. Oh my gosh, he's my mentor, Cliff Martin. I'm signed up, and I say he's my mentor because he's actually my campaign manager too. A little plug for him. But he does this amazing high energy. We're in the room together. It's a safe space way of talking about the qualities and attributes of a CEO, executive director, no matter what the size of the agency is. And he gives us kind of scenarios to talk through, what it's like to answer to a board, what it's like to pick up the phone when the dear heart tenant calls you at 11 o'clock at night because the toilet won't flush, and how to have confidence and be kind of a high performance leader when you feel like you're going by the seat of your pants. So Jill, if you haven't signed up for that, perhaps Michael, we can get her the link, because I've been in some of his other sessions on high performance management, and Jill, I have to tell you, he makes you feel safe. He makes you feel special, and he gets you excited. I mean, you believe you can change the world. So if you have
That's
a
all
chance,
good to know.
yeah, and it's two half days,
Okay.
2 half
I think
days.
I've actually seen the link. I just didn't know if I needed to attend or not because so many of these things are for larger entities, and I feel like I'm just a little small thing out here. But
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you for saying that. One of the things that Sunny has had us pay attention to, and I'll be continuing if I'm fortunate to be elected as president, is making sure that all housing authority leadership feel welcomed, and that when we have these sessions, we're speaking to what's important for you. So for right now, I'm coming from a large agency, but I'm speaking
right,
with you, Jill. There's so much sameness.
the sameness, yes,
There's so much sameness, and so
and
you're absolutely welcome.
that surprises me. And thank you very much.
Well, we as housers, and Noah, I love your input. When I look at what we do, and we talked about it a little bit this morning. First, we're managing the HUD funds for public housing in most cases in the Section 8 program. But because we often serve the members of our cities who have had more challenging roads to journey on, so they may have they're not as much educated, they're not able to get jobs that allow them to get market rental housing. Often because of their income levels, they may have illnesses, mental illnesses, sometimes substance abuse. We serve folk who often need more than just the keys to a good unit. And so a lot of our work has community services tied into it. Depending upon your community, I would imagine you're part of a neighborhood group, or the council, or the community organizations. We're like small cities. We really are. And even if it's 100 units or 35 units, you're caring for a community that's looking for more than just pay your rent and here's the keys to your unit. And so whether it's a smaller community or a larger community, I think we walk a lot of the same journeys. Did I
For
describe that
sure.
well, Noel,
Yes, you did.
Rebecca?
Yeah,
So what do you think,
I
Noel?
think, well, I think you did fine. I mean, I'm an older guy. This is probably I don't know. I don't know how much longer I'll be in this position. But I took this position about 4.5 years ago because they were looking. I was doing consulting. I was a CIO. First, I was a controller, then CIO for 31 years in healthcare. And I was doing consulting, and they asked me if I would run this agency while they found somebody to permanently take the agency. And after 5 months, they just said, "Look, why don't you do it? We like what you're doing. You're a financial person. You're making changes. You want to make this a business rather than run it like a housing authority that relies on funding. You want to see it make a profit. So why don't you run it?" So I decided to go ahead and do it. And anyway, I was tired of traveling on the consulting circuit. But first thing I did was read everything in the HUD website having to do with the programs that this housing authority manages. And the next thing I did was read every contract we had, whether they were the partnership contracts and the tax credits, or contracts that related to those tax credits. I try to read every contract that we had, and then I looked through all the financials. And one of the things I told the staff that I wanted to do was that I wanted to make everybody responsible for their department. So like my director of public housing, I told my director of public housing, I'm going to give you a P&L for public housing. And you're going to be responsible for making sure that P&L breaks even, or you have a little money left over for next year. But what we're not going to do is lose money and then put out our hand and say, well, we need more money, HUD, when can we get additional funding? And I did the same thing with my director of Section 8. I said, this is the administrative fee revenue that you get. I want you to, here's your P&L, and I want you to operate within your budget. And as far as the HAP is concerned, I thought we were being too conservative in giving out rent increases to landlords. And one of the things that they were telling me was that, well, the more if we give out rent increases, then we'll eat up the HAP. And I said, well, I tell you what, we're not going to get good units for people to rent if we're not competitive out there. And I want good units. And I said, as far as using up our budget authority, I told them, I read this notice and notice whatever it was. And I said, and it says that if I have administrative fee reserves, I can use that to supplement my HAP. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to make sure we have a administrative fee reserve every year, so that if HAP needs to be supplemented, we'll do it with the administrative fee reserve. And so our landlords are happier now that we're more competitive as far as rental rates are concerned. And yes, we even went into shortfall this year, and I actually, believe it or not, we actually got over $223,000 with the CARES Act funding, because we were over the 2% on our rents went up by over 2%, and I applied, and we actually got awarded some money, and we're actually able to get out of shortfall. So, but we've been on shortfall every year, and every year I've been supplementing it with administrative fee reserves, and I just feel that HUD wants us to move our low-income tenants to areas of higher income, where they can mix with tenants that make more money, and consequently, hopefully, it rubs off on them that their kids are going to college, and that way our kids go to college, and so on and so forth. And we can't do that unless we get competitive with rents. And that's one of the things that I'm a big proponent of, that I want to pay our landlords as much as the FMR will allow us. And I'm at 110% right now, and I'm doing a study, a reasonableness study in the market to see if I can ask HUD to go above the 110% of the FMR on my voucher rate. So I'm applying to do a straight voluntary conversion, because we're under 250 units in public housing, and I like that option better than RAT, because I want the full voucher payment rather than the RAT payment. I want the full voucher payment. So we're trying to do as much as possible to eventually, my goal is that I'm going to create a nonprofit that I'll shift all my employees to, and eventually just manage the voucher program, and that's it. We'll just charge the voucher program a management fee. And I know HUD tells me that I have to be, if I have a separate company that does that I have to put it out for RFP, so, and that's fine. I think I can make the RFP so that we beat out anybody, but eventually that's what I want to do. I want to have my own marketing brand, and really become a real estate company that has affordable housing and that manages a voucher program.
No, I have to tell you, I'm gonna jump in a little bit, because we've had some more folks join us on the call, but I want, Michael, whatever Noel has for lunch, please, because that was pretty amazing. No, first of all, I just had to say, for someone that's been there 4 years, can I just share what I heard? Because this session is about executive leadership. I heard that you came in, you were willing, first of all, to serve for this housing authority on an interim basis and help affordable housing for a short-term gig. You then jumped into a full commitment. You did what sounds like a serious deep dive forensic analysis on everything in your housing authority by reading the contract Smart Way to Go, so you know what your obligations are, working with your staff teams. You then went straight into, and I wonder if this is some of the IT tech part of your brain, you went into future thinking and strategy. And isn't that what we do as leaders, right? As we try to figure out, okay, this is who we are today. What is the vision and the mission for who we want to be in 5 years and 10 years? And you've already designed your vision of a nonprofit and repositioning of your public housing so that it gets better funding, and you're going to be a real estate mongrel for affordable housing. And you're thoughtful about protecting your partners, the landlords, by making sure they're getting fair market HAP payments, and making sure that the clients you serve are forward thinking to get better jobs. You just put kind of a 10-minute capture on what it means to lead this small city we call our housing authorities. So that's what I heard in that short speech. No, and I don't know what everybody else heard, but I'm like, wow, congratulations and thank you.
Well, it's so different from what I was used to. I think one of the first things that we did here, I told the staff, I couldn't believe we didn't have a mission statement, we didn't have a vision statement, we didn't have value statements. So that's one of the first things that Steph and I got together and created our mission statement, our vision statement, and then our value statement as to the values we were going to have to get there. But that's one of the first things we did within the first couple of months while I was here. But I just can't understand the business. I couldn't understand coming from the healthcare environment. I couldn't understand a business without knowing what we wanted to become or what we wanted to be. And then I think one of the biggest fallacies of public housing and Section 8 and HUD is that they don't allow us the opportunity unless you go out and create partnerships of how to get people out of housing. It's almost like people wonder why the public wonders why people are in public housing or Section 8 for so long. Well, the HUD programs are not made for us to offer them things that they don't allow us to pay for things that will hopefully get them a better education and so on and so forth. We gave out, I think this year we gave out something like 73,000 in scholarships. My housing authority did. Last year we gave out 86,000 in scholarships, and we're using our pilot for scholarships is what we're using. I made an agreement with the local school district and also with the local city to that they agreed to donate our pilot payment back to my nonprofit, and I created a nonprofit called Project READ, READ being an acronym for Residents Earning Advanced Degrees, and are using this donations coming back from the pilot program as the basis for scholarships. And so I made a 10-year agreement with them, so we don't have to worry about scholarship money for the next 10 years, or now 7. It was 3 years ago, so now 7
Wow.
years.
So now I'm gonna add, because I want to make sure that we kind of open up the mic for some of our other folks. There's now 7 of us on the call, Noel, and so Rebecca and Karen have joined Jill and I on listening to some of the suggestions and ideas that you've modeled for us. And I heard innovation. I definitely heard being kind of adaptable to what the needs of the community were, and your ability to be adaptable even as your housing authority hit shortfall, and your receptiveness to taking what you knew in the healthcare industry as a chief uh, CIO officer, and applying it to the housing authority. And it sounds like you've grown just the services and the impact that you're having in the community there and with families. So that is certainly, sir. Thank you again, Noel. You outlined several of what I know to be the key qualities that I strive for in trying to be a servant leader and an executive director. So thank you. And I'm wondering, there's one thing, Michael, I was hoping to put in the chat. Noel, you talked about reading and finding everything you could on the HUD page. And I wanted to make sure that in addition to the training that NARO has, for example, the executive director training coming up, everyone is familiar with the HUD website, Lead the Way. I've done some trainings for NARO for commissioners, and it's on the HUD Exchange, and it's a free tool for learning all the basic requirements of what it means to run a housing authority. It's all about governance. There's trainings for Board of Commissioners, and as executive directors, it very much helps us to understand what the rules are for our Board of Commissioners, so that way we can staff them well and help guide them as they give us governance input and lead us on policy development. Huge training on financial management, including information on if you're going to do a repositioning like Noel talked about with RAD or Section 18 or the under 200 units methodology. The basics of our two primary programs, public housing and Section 8, as well as some of the boutique programs. I mean, it's this free tool that I use, number one, for onboarding new management and leadership staff, but I go to it because it often will remind me and refresh my memory. So Michael, oh, you put it in there. Thank you so much. That is a wonderful, wonderful tool, and it's always there. So if you can't sleep at 4 o'clock in the morning, you grab a cup of tea and get some HUD training in there. And I've used it for onboarding. So wanted to make sure that we had that resource available for all of us. Rebecca and Karen and Director, welcome. We're having kind of a very intimate chat on what leadership means for each of us, whether we're executive directors, commissioners, or perhaps someone in our housing authority where we've got a vision for being a leader. So this is kind of a safe coffee talk. We've heard a little bit from Noah and Jill and myself just on what our different experiences have been. And just wondering, Rebecca and Karen, if you want to share a little bit about what your role is with your housing authority and who you're representing today.
Sure. My name is Rebecca Solandi. I'm the executive director for the San Angelo Housing Authority. Yeah, I was inspired by your presentation as well, Noel. We are actually in the process of trying to do the Section 22 conversion. We just submitted our application to the SAC. So I'm hoping that goes well, and we have big plans to try to do some more resident services with the income that will increase from the conversion. So I love the your idea about the READ program. I think that's amazing.
That was absolutely, I agree.
Thank you.
I wrote that one down too, Noah. Karen, did you want to add anything about what your experiences have been?
Yes, I'm Karen Reynolds. I'm from the Bangs Housing Authority, and I also run the Eden Housing Authority, both small. Bangs has 60 units, Eden 36. His story was wonderful. I would love to talk to somebody like that could give ideas and maybe some mentorship on what you can do with a small agency. The only program we have right now is public housing. And as far as the conversions or anything, we're kind of sitting back watching and still trying to learn and see which one might fit us. We're kind of gun shy about all that and stubborn, and we don't want to change yet. But some point in time, we might be up for it.
So on that, thank you for sharing that. And on that website that I talked about, there is some information on repositioning and what it means and what it would look like to transfer your assets. But I have to concur. You know, here in Oakland, we did a disposition before RAD was RAD, Section 18 of multiple properties. And you learn a lot of journeys along the way, just in terms of penciling out the numbers and making sure we're clear on what the impact is. And so if anybody wants to talk about that for Karen and Noel, your experience as how you're planning it, this would be a great place to do that. But for reading and some just basic materials, both the NARA website and the HUD's website has some good stuff that we can just do in our quiet moments and try to figure it out. As a leader, when you're thinking about the vision of where to go, what do each of you use? What is it you do to decide that who we are today as a housing authority is good, but it's not necessarily going to work because my community is changing, and so I know I need to do something different? Who have you relied on in your different spaces to get some ideas or get some understanding about what to do next? I talked about the San Francisco Bay Area 8 EDs, and we bounce things off of each other. And of course, a lot of my work and committee work in NARO. Is there any other ideas that folks have on who they use to get input and insight from that they'd like to share?
We just mostly at Bangs and Eden, we mostly rely on the people that we know, as far as Texas Narrow, the people we talk to at HUD. We talk to a lot of different people, and we get information on their journey with the different programs, and mentorship mostly, you know, from the other housing authorities and the contacts we've made through Texas Tomorrow. It's been a wealth of information, and we've made so many good friends and learned a ton.
So it sounds like we're very much the same, kind of need to get a little help from our friends, as the saying goes. Well, how about giving back help? Even Jill being a new ED, one of the things that I've found, it's amazing how many folks kind of come up to me and say, how are you doing this today now? Even though I'm by the seat of my pants and just learning, people even want today to understand how I do things. Is there someone in your world that you're kind of mentoring as the rising leader that you've also focused on? Because I find it when I learn something and then I give it to someone else, that kind of pay it forward, that helps me along the way. Has anyone else had that experience? Oh, now we got quiet again, Michael. Uh-oh.
I noticed that.
Ah.
One of the things that a lot of the conversation going on that's been hitting me from our previous conferences that we've done together is some words from our dear friend Adrienne Todman, when she says that she has a hard time just imagining all the things that, like the small agencies, the role of ED, that ED has to do this, that, and that, and the other, that when she was an ED at a bigger one was like, I couldn't imagine having to do all of that. And so it's just, you know, the biggest thing that she said that really impacted me was she couldn't do what she did without her team and also her community, being a part of the community and using those resources and being known so people know who you are. And it's not just the report that you give, but also as the person that you are. And we talk about that Paul and Timothy type of mentorship, where it's always important for someone to have a mentor to look up to and a mentee to bring up. It's just a continuing role. So I think those are some things that just always has stuck with me over the last couple of months. And I would love to see these others as well, as just choose who's your mentor and who's your mentee. And it's kind of like from that movie War Room. Once you have that one person in good position, find another one.
Thank you for that, Michael, because you did it much more eloquently. That's exactly what I was going to. And it's amazing how that connection both ways, up and down or sideways, is inspiring to you as the individual. And then others see that. So that's the crazy, that when that light shines, someone else is a fourth person watching what's going on and getting inspired. And so does anybody want to share about their experience there, Noel and Jill?
I've called the people or other EDs around me for just things that are very minute to humongous things, and they've all been really good, a big help. And without them, I don't know what I would do. And I'm still the mentee. I can't afford to get anybody underneath me because I don't know what to tell them anyway.
I have a funny feeling that you have a lot to give. One of the things that I've already realized just a few moments we've had to speaking is that you're very frank and honest about what is happening in your day. And I think as leaders, it takes courage sometimes to be frank and honest. So I have a funny feeling you have a lot to share, because it takes courage to walk into a space that's been the same way for over 30 years and say, we're going to change things for the better because we need to have systems or have great policy. So that's something that all of us need. And sometimes even those of us who have been in the seat for a while, we forget how important courage is and how important being frank is. So please don't sell yourself short, because you've already, I heard that and I was like, right on. That's really good. One of the spaces that for me is super sensitive is how to support your board of commissioners. And each commission, and if you're have a commission where the mayor appoints your board, that's one kind of personality and relationship with the executive director. If you are in some of our housing authorities where the commission is the city council or an elected group, that's another kind of personality. How have any of you navigated just the role of being a staff member to a group of 7, or in some cases 12, that you're beholden to? Any experiences we want to share there and learning about it there?
That's something else I jumped into. We have a all new board. There's 2 on our board that have been there for a few years, but the rest of them are all new. So they don't know any more than I do. We're all learning together. So it's been a bumpy ride.
Wow. Well, I definitely encourage you to use the 2 resources, Michael. There's the training on Lead the Way governance. I would watch myself, Jill, and that's how I did it.
I have been watching because I do have board members that are really interested in doing some training. Unfortunately, what's coming up is a bad time for them. So I'm just watching until it comes back out.
No, that's awesome. And there are some things that are must-dos for a new board, which a lot of housing authorities forget about. Like the training's ethic is actually, the ethics training for commissioners, for all of us, is actually required in our roles as members of NARO. And so that would be one that if your new commissioners haven't taken it, I'd put that on your radar, trying to get that done. It's kind of easy breezy online. But it really helps set the tone, because just like as Michael talked about with executive directors, small housing authorities, you carry such a huge load. So do our commissioners, because oftentimes they're put on boards, especially if appointed by the local mayor, for reasons that may not be necessarily what you as ED hope. or they're put on boards because they just needed to fill a seat, and their role is super important in governance. And so ethics helps them know that even if their brother-in-law does a great job at laying floors, they have a particular role as commissioners of our board to make sure they don't do anything where the procurement for a floor layer gets all of us into shark-filled waters. And so that first training on ethics, Jill, is one I would point to. Any other recommendations from you, Noel, Rebecca, Karen, on how to help support the volunteers we have as our board, which is huge, and resources?
I think one of the things that I did was that those metrics that we have to track, we need to be at 98% or above in occupancy, and use 98% of the budget authority, so on and so forth. But some of the metrics that the HUD measures on us on is to try to make it as easy for them to evaluate how you're doing, so that you can provide the metric and the measurement from 1 month to the next, from 1 year to the next, so that they can see for themselves what it is that you're doing. And the other thing is to when you're going over your financials with them, it's explain to them why something is the way it is. Why is the HAP program in a negative, right? Because you've paid out more rents than you've been given HAP revenue for. But those are the things that I feel you need to do for the board. You need to give them as much as possible, so that they're able to measure how it is that you're doing, even if it sometimes makes you look bad.
Yeah, I totally agree. And making sure the information is easy and clear, because for those of us that might sit on boards ourselves, you know what it's like to have a day job and then have all this material to read so that you can do a good job governing your housing authority. I have huge respect for our commissioners and the fact that they're doing it typically because they just have a passion for what we do. And the easier we make it for our board members, the better the partnership between the executive director and the commission. Thank you for that, Noel. So Michael, I noticed we're coming up at 11:53, and I think many of us have a top of the hour engagement, sir. So I just want to say, Rebecca, Jill, Noel, Karen, and the mysterious director, I'm grateful that you invited me to be part of just this kind of comfortable discussion on executive directors. And Michael has my contact information. If I could help anyone in the future, just feel free to give me a call or an email. And just congratulations on your conference, and many, many well wishes for good health and finding joy in the everyday, because this is not a problem we're living in. It's just a predicament. And us housers, we know how to make predicaments sunshine and lemonade. So just thank you for the work you do. And thank you, Michael, for always being so welcoming to me.
My pleasure. It's always great to have you around. I enjoy our conversations. Another shameless plug for all you executive directors is one thing that, we here at the service office are here for is if there is a training that you need, contact us. We have lots of great connections on trainings and trying to find out what y'all need that will actually fill and stuff like that. So if you have a training need, you're probably not the only one. So contact us so that we can try to make it happen. And also we have a lot of negotiations out to where we can do it at a cheaper price than sometimes when you do it out by yourself. So don't hesitate to reach out to us. Or also, if you have a question and you don't know who to call, we're very blessed. We have Hattie and Shelly who have been in the business for over 10 years now. And if they don't know the answer, they know who might have the answer. So don't feel hesitant to reach out to us. That's what we're here for, and that's what we do. So thank you, Patricia, for all that you've done. Thank you, everyone, for your open and honesty and just talking with one another. We'll see you here in about 15-20 minutes for the next round. We've got some great sessions still going on. Thank you, Patricia, for your time, and we'll see you soon.
Bye-bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.